It is March the 6th. That means in 21 days, exactly 3 weeks from today, the baseball season begins for your Texas Rangers when they take on the Boston Red Sox. We are getting you ready for that with lots more news from Surprise, Arizona. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. Oh, man, it's too bad that Jeff Wilson isn't in studio today. If he was, he and the Prophet and I could hold hands and belt out a few bars of Kumbaya. Yeah, the Rangers are in the process of developing that team chemistry, and it has been sort of Kumbaya so far this spring. We welcome you into the DLLS Sports Studios. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. John Radigan here. Jeff Wilson, that's J-Dub in Arizona. We've got the Prophet right over there coming up with all those great little slogans like Kumbaya. Love that one. And we're going to get to that sort of bonding that also takes place during spring training. But Jeff, the first order of business is to talk about something that's already come out today. For context, you go back to yesterday. Emiliano Teodo strikes out the side to get a save in the game that the Rangers won against the Reds yesterday. And you know, the social media platforms go nuts. Here's your new closer. He's the closer. He's got to be the closer. You kidding me? He's got 2 saves. Oh, my gosh. He's got to be the closer. And sounds like Boch just kind of said, all right, everybody, let's just tap the brakes.
Yeah, I think he finally got tired of the line of questioning. And it was, talking about guys who have been exciting this spring and maybe are forcing their way onto the roster, people to change their mind. And I had done on DLS eight stars of camp so far. I didn't put Mark Church in there because Mark Church is kind of a known quantity at this point, but he's having a great spring. But anyway, conversation with this morning was Mark Church and Emiliano Teodo. Can they make the team? They're been very impressive when they've pitched. I know Church gave up a couple runs his first time out, but he's been great since then. And finally, Bruce was kind of going through some of the things that how they're handling these guys and all this stuff. And Teodo's not going to pitch for 3 more days, so it's like, okay, I finally said a guy who is pitching every 4th day can't make the major league roster. And Boch said, all right, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Teodo's a long shot. All right, so it makes perfect sense. Yes, he's got great stuff. If you look at the stuff in a vacuum, he could be a closer. Okay, but that's all. That's it. The command is still, the Rangers aren't sure about the command. This guy has probably never pitched in back-to-back games in his career, let alone under pressure circumstances with 40,000 people in the stands. And there's another thing. The stuff he showed yesterday, 100-mile-per-hour fastball and a really good slider, imagine that over 7 innings at a time. The Rangers still believe that Emiliano Teodo can start. So they want to let that play out. And then, he's young. He only threw 90 innings last year, let's say. They don't want to go out there and suddenly have him throw on back-to-back days or 3 days in a row. It's just not feasible. Now, could he become a closer or a big bullpen piece later in the season? 100% he could. He's on the 40-man roster, which is a huge advantage, meaning he can be optioned back and forth between the majors and the minors. But they're going to let this play out. Now, Bruce left open the possibilities that anything can happen. But it would take a series of injuries, I think, or Teodo, um, kind of coming into a game late this spring against, let's say, the Dodgers and going through the heart of their order and faring well. Right now in games when he's been pitching, he's been facing guys that he's either faced before at the same level or guys who are even below his level. So he should be dominating these guys, and he is. So, it's kind of a tap the brake moment here. Um, let's not let this one get out of control. Emiliano Teodo, a long shot to make the Rangers opening day roster.
Yeah, and it's a guy with an enormously bright future with the Rangers. And the reality is, Jeff, it's much more difficult, as the Rangers have proven over 54 years now. It's difficult to groom, to make, to create starting pitchers, right? And it's not easy to get a closer either, but it's much more difficult to develop a starting pitcher than it is to find somebody who can close for you.
Well, I mean, you don't need to tell anybody that besides the Rangers. They get it. They have had their fair share of problems developing starting pitchers, and yeah, that you're 100% right. When you look at these great successful stories of past teams, you can go back to the 2000 team, the great Moneyball A's. Everybody's like, "Oh, Billy Bean, what a genius!" Yeah, he had Tim Hudson, Barry Zito, and Mark Mulder. Yeah, anybody can look good with that trio. And
Yeah.
and then you can go and look at the Giants teams that Bruce Bochy won World Series with Tim Lincecum and Matt Cain and Madison Bumgarner, homegrown dudes. So teams that can do that have a distinct advantage. The 2015 Mets, who lost the World Series, Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard, God, that guy that blew out, I can't think of his name, who was the best one of them all. They had homegrown starting pitchers, and the future looked very, very good for them. It just didn't work out. So uh, the Rangers need to have a chance. Now, you're saying that about Teodo in one breath, and then in the other breath, it looks like Jack Leiter might make this team. A lot of starting pitchers though get their first experiences in the major leagues as relievers. Derek Holland comes to mind, of course, and Jack spent last year coming into games late in the season as a reliever, and he's pitched really, really well. The Rangers really like what they've seen from him, so he has a chance to make this team as a reliever. Mark Church is in the mix, limited experience, but unbelievable stuff. So I asked Bruce, the Rangers have brought in six guys this offseason. And I said, so does that mean there's only two spots open? And he said there might be three. So that was interesting. Um, that could mean maybe somebody's hurting. Maybe they just don't like somebody like they thought they would. Or maybe there's a plan for opening day that they will have nine relievers and four starters, with the ability to I'm not sure when you can first option somebody and get them back to the major soon enough. But things are possible. There are a lot of ways to manipulate the roster. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting, and it does it makes one ponder how there might be three positions available. So something to keep an eye on as we go forward. Yeah, so tap the brakes on Teodo, but fear not. Even if he's not called up this year to help either as a starter or as a reliever, this young man will be a big part of the Rangers' future pitching plans. And under any circumstances, it's been fun to watch him. That those of us who had an opportunity
Oh
to
yeah.
see him in previous years at the minor league level, especially last year, know that. I mean, he was fun to watch last year in Frisco, Jeff.
Sure, and he's a lot of some people like gotten to know him and really like him. He's learning English, but he's confident. He's a funny kid, and he's still a kid. And if we want to go back a little bit further in his pitching career, when Bruce Bochy was talking about they want to protect him and kind of watch his innings this season. Teodo in 22 dealt with an elbow issue after in his first outing. And it took him a little while longer to get back than people thought. He didn't pitch a ton that year. He didn't pitch a ton last year. Now he'll make a jump this year. Maybe he gets to 100 innings, a little over 100, but that's again pitching once a week as a starting pitcher. Um, it's a whole different ball of wax coming in, pitching on back to back days perhaps, and still trying to have your best stuff in your best command when you probably don't have your best command yet. So it's a tricky deal. Mark Church last year had a great spring. And a lot of people, including myself, thought he had a chance to make the team. Um, he threw on back-to-back days last spring, kind of something a pitcher has to do if he's going to pitch in the big leagues, and it's something every reliever does in spring training. And he said that was the first time he'd ever pitched on back-to-back days. So he wasn't ready last year, even though we thought he might be, and I think he might be this year too. He's definitely more in the mix than Teodo is, but it's not a given. I've thought for a long time that Mark Church would make this team out of spring training. Just he's throwing 100 miles an hour. He has a good slider. He really likes the split finger he's pitching with. But um, these guys, like I said, with bringing in these six guys that really raise the floor, you have to be really, really good to make this team. And that's not to say Mark Church can't, but it's not going to be easy for him for sure.
No, it's that whole business about raising the floor, the talent floor, and that's what the Rangers have done. That's why they and how they plan to be a competitive team, a team that competes not only for the playoffs, but a team that competes for the World Series. We've actually got more on that coming up later on in the show. We want you to chat along with us as you've been doing so far, but hit us up with the questions. And Jeff, there's a weather update that may be pertinent. Now, we've seen the probable pitchers for tomorrow, and Jacob deGrom is penciled in right there at the top of the probable pitchers, but that could change based on the weather.
Yeah, it's brilliantly sunny today. It's very windy. I feel bad for the pitchers today. But rain is going to blow in overnight. The temperature is going to drop considerably. It's only supposed to be like 55 tomorrow, and it's supposed to rain all morning. Um, Bruce said that they expect the rain to clear out at 1 o'clock. The Rangers are playing a night game tomorrow, so that buys them a little more time. But it looks like right now that deGrom will be pitching. He's still penciled in. It's going to be a little chilly, but 50 degrees in the 50s they think is okay. Uh, Wyatt Langford is also expected to make his debut tomorrow, but if he does, he will do so as a DH. They're not going to let him run around a wet outfield. So it looks like they're both in line for tomorrow. I saw Wyatt hitting in the cage. He took batting practice on Tuesday during our show here on the field, and so it looks like he's on track to make his debut tomorrow. But again, as a DH instead of a left fielder. But if the weather lingers. If it gets a little bit colder than they think, then they'll bump both of those guys to Saturday.
Yeah, interestingly, that cooler weather may be more difficult for the Florida kid, than the Wyatt than for Jacob deGrom. I mean, Jacob pitched, in April every year up in New York, for God's sake, when it was 40 at game time.
Yeah. Now Jacob is a Florida kid. That's
true. That part's true. But yeah,
you're exactly right.
New York,
You're exactly right. He's pitched in some chilly dang weather. So I would think that Jacob could handle it. But the Rangers are concerned. Still, they want everything they want a utopia for him when he pitches, but it's going to be hard to do. If his first starts in Cincinnati, it's going to be cold on April 1st in Cincinnati, and then his second start, as it turns out, would be at Wrigley Field. Well, I know from experience in April it is very cold at Wrigley Field, so we'll see how it works out. But you can't completely um, have a set stringent parameters for him to pitch, or he might never pitch.
Right.
Just let him go. He can handle it.
Yeah, and that's sort of the message he was sending yesterday when he was on MLB Network. Sort of the whole business of, they got to be really careful with you, man. If I'm going well, just let me pitch, right? I mean,
sir,
the body will tell him, and I think any ball player wants it to go that way. Now, and again, I think he's pretty in tune, especially at this point in his career and in his life, with messages that the body is sending. So, they'll be careful. They should be. By the same token, I know, you've seen it out there in person. Jacob deGrom is chomping at the bit. Man, he wants to get out there and get after this. So lots more coming up. We want to get to that kumbaya portion of the story where the Rangers players are bonding during this spring training, as well as, of course, getting ready for the baseball season. So we talk about that. Plus, one Rangers pitcher not real excited about the new automatic balls and strike system that's coming next. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. But I haven't popped on the Shady Rays on the show in a minute, so I thought I'd do that because we need them here today, Jeff, which is nice.
Oh, good.
Appreciate the Shady Rays. We appreciate these glasses. These, we've had them for months now. They're still sturdy, solid. They don't flop around like some of the glasses will do. They're well made. They're polarized. They're good looking. You don't have to have this style. There's 100 different styles. There's colors all over the place. They've got the color rush technology, which I really like because it kind of morphs, if you will. It's like a chameleon. It becomes the color of whatever it is that it's where it's paired with. So when you're wearing, a certain color, it sort of matches that color. So that's a cool technology that they have over there at Shady Rays. We encourage you to get a pair. They're awesome glasses because if you get a pair, you'll do like me. I'm going to get more. And you can get these for 35% off right now. ShadyRays.com with the code DLLS.
I was checking out the Game Time app. I can't do it now because it's on my phone, but I was checking that out, and we have some fans here.
Guest.
Hello, how are you? We have a guest, ma'am. Hi.
Oh.
What does she need?
Live television. The Game Time app is fantastic. We use it all the time. It might be Nicole from Game Time, who just popped into the booth there to let Jeff know that she's not going to forget about me. But you should get Game Time. So many different things on there that guaranteed service and a price lock that you'll absolutely have. So Game Time is a wonderful app and one that you should avail yourself to. And if you go to the Game Time app and use the code DLLS, $20 off your first purchase. So we got a little just some negotiating going on with Jeff in Surprise, Arizona. The booth that we're normally in, the booth where Jeff has been sitting, is during the games anyway, is used in a different capacity. So that's probably the people arriving early for whatever's happening there later today. So he's back. So did you have to kick anybody's butt, Jeff?
Well, that was one of the wonderful surprise sun dancers who was they volunteer here. They're the retired folks who are always at the stadium, and poor photographer couldn't find her way and looking for a place to work. Apparently, I'm the only one who's nice enough to answer the door. So we think we got it settled down. Thanks for handling game day. I was going to mention that I'd been looking at game day at the opening day ticket prices.
Oh yeah, how are they?
Yeah, high. As you'd expect.
Yeah.
But, anywhere from 2,800 to 117, 111, depending on where you want to sit.
Wow.
But anyway, crisis averted. So I don't know why they didn't, there's a sign posted that is reserved for us from 11 to noon. But whatever. That's live streaming for you, folks.
I love it. Love a little live breakthrough. All right, so this was not live, but I bet it was a lot of fun. A few Rangers players as part of the whole process. And look, there's a lot of downtime in spring training too. And a few of the guys went and found one of those escape rooms where you go in and you team up and you try to get out of an escape room. And look at there, they did it. Thank God. I mean, if Nathan Eovaldi hadn't escaped, we wouldn't have an opening day starter, Jeff. And there's Jake Berger and, of course, Josh Young, big, strong Walt Pennington. I mean, it's amazing because we think of Wyatt Langford, who's next to him, as a linebacker, Jeff. And Walt, man, he's a big, strong fella.
He is. He's put together, and of course he's from Colorado, so he comes by it naturally. But
Yeah,
that's I was looking at that photo, and of that group, um, Walt lives here with his wife and two kids. Nathan is married with two kids, but they're in school in the Houston area. Jake, who we all know his family is in Tennessee, is tending to Sweet Penelope. Josh Young is a bachelor. He has roommates this spring. I think Wyatt might be one of them because Wyatt's wife is playing college softball for Mercer in Georgia. So, you got four dudes that are there alone without their lady friends, and then Walt, who lives locally and could probably sneak out on occasion. So yeah, it's interesting. You kind of look at that group. You have a starting pitcher, the starting first baseman, the starting left fielder, the starting third baseman, and a reliever who's fighting for a spot on the team. But these guys are together all the time. They're very close knit, basically because they have to be, and I was talking to Jake Berger. I'm going to be writing a story about how the Rangers are helping him deal with what's going on with his daughter being in Tennessee and all that stuff, and how he went home for the surgery, and just how he's doing now, and he said that he's just a new guy on the team and felt nothing but love from these guys, and he said that pretty much everybody on the team when he was in Tennessee was texting him and checking for updates. And so, these are good people. That's something that Chris Young wants. No jerks. You're a good person if you're going to be on the Texas Rangers. But they do need to find the chemistry because, it's coming out here and there that it wasn't as good as it was in 23, and some changes have been made in the clubhouse on the roster, and Chris Young wasn't going to let that happen again. So to see these guys though going out and having fun and buying dinner and for each other, I'm assuming the $25 million man Evaldi picked up the check, taking care of the young guys, if you will, because those guys are all still pre-arb eligible, I think. So it's just kind of the way things work at spring training. It's part of the deal. You know, these lockers are tight. It's not this big spacious clubhouse. You really you really get to know somebody. You might see something you don't want to see, but it's important that the team, especially for the catchers and the pitchers, Kyle Higashioka has probably been doing just what those guys are doing. Getting to know the guys, and also getting a release from baseball. Life is still fun. You don't have to just sit here and think about baseball all the time. You get to have a life.
yeah, and the thing that's great to see in that picture too is the presence of Nathan Evaldi, in that the others are all young guys, right? And the
Yeah.
young guys certainly are going to have, just as like-minded. They're going to, have an opportunity to perhaps bond even more. But Nathan is, one of the veterans and one of the older guys on the team, and he's still involved with that. Like you say, in part, no doubt. And I'll tell you who was great at this was Lance Lynn, as a veteran who was making a lot of money. He took care of the young guys. And I'm sure in this case,
Sure.
Nathan was doing exactly what you said. Let's take care of these young guys. Let's go out and have a little fun. Let's bond. And let me, pick up the tab for whatever it costs to escape from the room, and probably a dinner and maybe a few drinks as well. So I love to see that. And that thing you mentioned about Berger, we know that this team really treated him like family, with regard to what was happening with his young daughter Penelope. And in ways, Jeff, I said it in one of the things, the description of the show I wrote, like, why not make these guys who you spend more time with than you do your family for 8 months out of the year? What the heck? Let's treat them like family.
Well, and keep in mind, Chris Young, he's not a player, but he's the head of the franchise on the baseball side. He was leaving town earlier in camp to go watch his daughter play high school
Yeah.
basketball. I think Marcus Simeon went home to watch his son play basketball for a game, and Mike Maddox right now is away from the club. His daughter just gave birth to a baby, so he's a first-time grandfather and wanted to be there for that. So it's not the I don't want to say the prison, but Tom Gree, for instance, never saw the birth of any of his kids
Right.
because he was in season and you just didn't ask. You just didn't ask the manager, hey, I need to go home, And Bruce Bochy, his first son, he didn't see until 8 days after he was born. It's just changed. There's the bereavement list, there's the paternity list. And some people still bellyache over it on Twitter. It's like, I'll tweet so and so's on the paternity list are like, well, my God, there's a baseball game to be played. These guys are human beings, all right? And I'm sure that the people tweeting that would get days off for the birth of their kids. So come on, and they no, the players know what they're getting into when they sign these deals and become professional baseball players. They understand that they're going to be away from their families for a long time. This Jake Berger situation is a little extreme, um, and it doesn't mean it doesn't suck. Yeah, they're making a ton of money, but you still miss your family. At the end of the day, you can't just call up your Wells Fargo app and look at your bank account and be like, oh, everything's okay. No, it hurts. I don't like being away from my kids, and I sure as
Right.
shit don't make as much money as these guys do.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reality
Yeah,
is, like with that Burger situation, okay, so he got to be there for the surgery, but Penelope didn't come home for 3 or 4 or 5 days after he left, right? So it's not
right.
like he took this extended period of time off. He wanted to make sure to be there to support her, but certainly his wife and his son too, as
Yeah,
Penelope went through that. But, it's not like if it was you or me and our child was going through that, we might just haul off and take the week off, right? There's a lot going on. They don't do that. Even with
yeah.
the
No, Henry.
paternity
Yeah,
leave, they get a couple days, and each, on each end there may be travel involved.
yeah. I mean, yeah, John, you've experienced this through all your travels. Like, you're somewhere nice. Well, I'll say Arizona because it always seems to happen. But you get a call from the wife, and it's like, oh God, Henry's got 102 fever. It's like, well, I feel terrible. I can't be there to help her out. Can't be there to make him feel better. Run him to the doctor, go get medicine, make him laugh, whatever it is. You feel bad. And this is a cold. Jake Berger's daughter had open heart surgery. It's not, that is a little more severe. And now infection is the greatest risk for her in her recovery, which is supposed to take 4 to 6 weeks. So her, his wife, there in Tennessee is like isolated and kind of quarantined because you don't want anybody coming over who might get her sick. So it's not just going to be a Arizona thing. Once the season starts, she may still be there until the doctor gives the all clear. But yeah, we're they may not be, they may look big and gruff and not emotional, but they're emotional just like all of our listeners and you and me, John.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One Large Scoop of Love has a pretty good comment regarding what you said, Jeff. You can't hug your bank account, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
those hugs, those come from, your family members. And, we see it with this group of players so far. It's really cool and wonderful to see how they have, come together as a family. And we actually had, when we had Chris Young on the show just before spring training began, we asked him about that aspect of a team, and he said, "I've definitely been on teams that just had a bad feel about the
hmm
clubhouse." And that's one of the reasons I think, Jeff, he's so dedicated, as you suggested, to making this anything but that.
yeah. And Donnie Ecker and I were talking about chemistry yesterday, and you're kind of, he's convinced that the teams that are one-minded and closest knit are going to can beat any team no matter how talented they are. And I brought up the NIL in college sports. You see these teams loading up through the portal and they're no good. It's because they don't have a chance to build the chemistry. So it's a thing. I used to be like, chemistry. I didn't like the story or didn't like the storyline and all that. It's kind of like, man, that's silly. But it's a real thing. I've learned over the years.
Yep, it is, and it's fun to see this team develop that. It develops throughout the year too. You'll hear it throughout the course of the season. They'll say, "Oh yeah, we get closer. We bond when we're on the road," which definitely always happens too. But this is the first opportunity to do that. This is basically a 6-week-long road trip, if you will, as in that most of the guys are away from home when they're out there in Arizona. So we've got more coming up on the show. We will get to that pitcher who's unhappy with the idea of this new automated ball strike system. Plus, we want to tell you where the Rangers rank according to MLB. It's a pretty good ranking. It's next. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast.
All right, John, stand alert in case somebody knocks at the door again.
I will.
But until then, let's talk about Waymo. Waymo, they're with us for spring training, which is very, very nice of them. Waymo is autonomous ride hailing. Okay, it's cheaper than the Lyft and the Uber. You just put it into the Waymo app that you're going to download after you hear this awesome ad, and the car shows up. You get in, it drives away. They are autonomous cars. All right. So you don't have to deal with chit chat from the driver, or as John, you've experienced, perhaps the foul body odor of a driver, male or female, cigarette smoke. Yeah, it's happened to me in a taxi cab before. It's not going to happen to you with Waymo. So it's in the Phoenix area. If you're at a game and you want to have a night out, if you're in town visiting for spring break or whatever, and you're over in Scottsdale, download the Waymo app and uh, get ready to experience what they say is the future.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And also, the future of your man cave needs to involve none other than what we love to call Saturday neon. Although you can turn that neon on any day, it doesn't just have to be Saturdays. But I think the play on words there is they are college sports centric right now. They've got 50 colleges and universities for which they will make you a neon sign that's a LED neon, so it's not one of the gaseous ones, and it'll look so cool in your man cave on Saturday as you watch your favorite college team, but on any other day of the week as well. You can get a personal one made. They're relatively inexpensive, so we encourage you to go to Saturday Neon, use the code DLLS, and you get up to 10% off for your Saturday Neon sign. All right, so let's get to this, Jeff. The Rangers, and actually we were kidding yesterday when we looked at their lineup. It was like getaway day of actual spring training. Like, yeah, we sent all the good guys away and we just put in a bunch of guys. And but we knew, I mean, at the bottom of that lineup was Tyler Mahle because the pitchers are going to get, stay on their thing. It doesn't matter who's behind them. The pitcher needs to get his work in. So, he's definitely a guy that will be on the team. And lo and behold, that ragtag bunch of Rangers beat the Reds yesterday. And part of the reason they did that was because Tyler Mahle threw the ball well.
Yeah, he kept him in the game, as they say. He ran into a little trouble in the second inning, but was able to wiggle out with only one run scoring. It was a pretty. He was really happy with it afterwards, and we talked about if he can keep pitching like this into the regular season, he's in a good spot. He did walk a couple guys, but he said the misses were exactly where they wanted him. He was commanding his pitches. Pitches were doing what he wanted. He's got a split, a slider, a fastball. The velocity ticked up as the game went on. So it looks good. Now the Reds didn't again have the big red machine out there. They had played the night game Tuesday against the Dodgers when Yamamoto and Sasaki pitched, and Ellie De La Cruz, among others, were in that lineup. But a couple guys you'd heard of in Cincinnati, and it was what he needed to do. But he did show a little moxie there with the ability to escape a pretty bad situation in the second. Yeah, and then afterward, he didn't really seem to want to talk much about his outing. So he was talking about how he had all these close misses. And so then I said, well, how are you handling the ABS? Are you just letting the catcher, in this case it was Kyle Higashioka, you just letting Kyle handle it? And well, it went a direction that we weren't sure it was going to go.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, the chat is telling us there's no audio, so we're going to work on that. But, Jeff recapped well what you'd actually heard through that part of the interview, which was just him talking about his precision and hitting his spots. Prophet's going to see if for the juicy part we can get the audio back. But the reality is, Jeff, you were the one who kind of inspired his chat about the ABS system, which he frankly does not like much at all.
Yeah, I'm a very inspirational guy, I guess. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I don't, first of all, I said, I'm going to let Kyle handle it. And he's like, I don't really like it. I was like, really? He's like, it's ridiculous. I was like, why is it ridiculous? And he said, it takes the human element out of the game. This game's going to become too automated, too robotic. You know, and you can take a look at what the ABS has done to AAA baseball. Walk totals are higher both for the hitters and the pitchers. A pitcher can make a really good pitch, and if it's just a hair off and the hitter knows it, he's not going to swing. And there was some concern about the value of the catcher being lost and his ability to frame pitches and whatnot. And all you would need is a guy who could block the occasional ball and throw runners out. Bruce Bochy doesn't believe that's the case because you only get, the two, and, theoretically you could run out of challenges if you're wrong twice. It was just a interesting perspective. I mean, Max Scherzer has more famously talked about it. And Max went further the other day in saying that the only reason ABS is a thing is because baseball is now aligned with gambling, and you don't want the umpires who can control the outcome of the game more than anybody, other than the starting pitcher, to affect the game because he might have some money on the line. And they just saw the thing with Pat Hoberg, who said he never bet on the games, but there was evidence there that it was his account that his buddy was betting through, so he ended up getting fired. So it's a tricky time, but if you're looking for a fan of the ABS, Tyler Mahle's not your guy.
Yeah, and he was around Max Scherzer, so perhaps there was an influence there. Scherzer has already said this spring, Jeff, that again, it's a game that is played by humans. Let us be judged by humans. I mean, it's an old school approach, but it's definitely one that more and more. Plenty of guys out there have that same opinion.
Yeah, and but ultimately, players might be kind of helpless. It could be the or the commissioner's discretion to implement it. There were a lot of people who were against the idea of the pitch clock. Guys who take forever between pitches. Shin-Soo Choo, God love him, was one of them, and he did not like the idea of the pitch clock at all. And there's still issues with it. Pitchers still think that they should be allowed a timeout. Batters get a timeout. Well, pitchers should get a timeout. Jacob deGrom's a big proponent of that. If he has to go cover first base uh, two plays in a row, he might be a little winded, but he's got to be on that mound ready to throw. He wouldn't mind having a timeout there, and I don't blame him. It might be advantageous, if you're a pitcher and you're throwing and guys fouled off 6 in a row, 7 in a row. Boy, I'm out of breath. I need a timeout, or I need to throw off his rhythm, get him off my pitches, something like that. Imagine if there had been a timeout in that game 3 of the ALDS in 23 when Nathaniel Lowe fouled off 14 or 15 pitches. He ended up making an out, but the Rangers scored, I think, 6 runs that inning because the pitcher was on the mound and the players saw it huffing and puffing. And so, anyway, there were far more opponents. There are many opponents of the pitch clock, and now that it's been implemented, there are a lot of people who love the damn thing. And I couldn't imagine a game without it now, honestly.
Understandably, it is probably slightly less controversial, but to your point, it not necessarily when it started, but I think in the concept of it is less controversial than ultimately, because I think the fear of the Scherzers and maybe of Tyler Mahle, we can ask him, is that ultimately there won't be umpires at all, right? That the balls and strikes will all be decided by the computer.
Yeah, and there was. I'm trying to think yesterday's challenge scenarios. Leody Taveras successfully challenged one that I believe resulted in a walk. It was like a 3-1 count. And then in the ninth inning, Emiliano Teodo threw a first pitch that he thought was a strike, and he challenged, and they showed it, and like it was so close to being a strike, but just the gap, it like the crowd oohed and awed and kind of chuckled because it was so close to being a strike, but was just off the plate. So it they're the umpire was right in that case. So he went 1 for 2, and you know, but they only used it twice. Now again, the Reds with Terry Francona are not using it. They're saying the hell with this. It's not going to be part of the game, so we're just ignoring it. But the Rangers have used it a few times successfully, and I just think it's inevitable that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree, and it is interesting though. You say you only get 2 challenges, but if you're right, you don't lose your challenge. So technically,
Correct.
if you're really good at this game and you're right every time, I mean, you could have 10 you could have a challenge an inning or more, right? If as long as as long as you're always correct, but which is, I know, a difficult task.
Okay. So Wyatt Langford, everybody remembers his infamous at bat last year at Houston with the that awful umpire Angel Hernandez. All right, the first pitch would have been ball four, right? Uh, I don't remember the circumstance, but it was well off the plate. Okay, Wyatt challenges. Angel says, "All right, the play is under review." Boom, ball. Next pitch, even further outside, hits the hat again. With a guy like Angel Hernandez, shit, you'd be there all night. So you may have to cap it. You may have to cap it per at bat. I don't know, but it still has some things that need to be worked out. But for the most part, these pitches, there hasn't been one that's been terribly egregious that we've seen so far. Like the Teodo one yesterday was, less just a hair off the plate. The very first one that Alan Trejo challenged in the Rangers' first game, it was a strike, and really it was an egregious challenge on his part because it was very clearly a strike. So but it does not take long, and for the most part, batters have not either have trusted the umpire's call or they haven't wanted to challenge it because they know it's not really a thing for them this season.
Yeah, yeah, and everybody in every sport is initially opposed to adding a technological aspect to it. As it is right now, the ABS system is only sort of like replay, if you will, in baseball or in football, right? It's only to correct mistakes, and so everybody, I think, would like to get it right. Now everybody is used to replays in virtually every sport. For some reason, for me, it seems like the replays take the longest in the NBA, unbelievably, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
used a lot in the NBA. So
right.
it's an interesting dynamic. It's an interesting road that we have traveled down. And it's going to continue to be interesting. Eventually, everybody will come around. But I love a guy with an opinion, Tyler Mahle. So thanks very much for that. That's fun. We still got to get to those rankings. May not go as deep as I was going to because we've also got the cleanup segment. Rankings become part of the cleanup segment next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. I got it, Jeff. I got the, in fact, Bobby Corella dapped me. He just got this one too, man.
The wing shirt.
Yeah, this is the Wings. The Dallas Wings, who are, I don't think, is it this year they're moving to Dallas or next summer? They've been in Arlington.
I don't follow the WNBA, John.
No, I haven't followed it super closely either. But anyway, they are, this is their shirt, but I like again, it's victory green like the stars, and it pops off the Navy. So it's a cool shirt. You should get one too. But you got a lot of choices. You don't have to have the same taste I do. Look at those great shirts there, or those great shirts. Still time. You're running out of time, though, to get the St. Patty's Day shirt. But how cool would it be to wear one of those out to your St. Patty's Day party or to the big parade in downtown Dallas? So it's our store.allcitynetwork.com. Get yourself some merchandise today, and proudly represent DLLS out in the world?
Yeah, I am merchless, though I am the proud owner of 13 DLLS shirts, one of which came when I became a diehard member. And you too can get a free t-shirt with your diehard membership. So in addition to getting great coverage from Clarence on the Cowboys and Sam on the Stars and Mr. Cato on the Mavs and decent coverage from me on the Rangers, you get a free dang t-shirt. You get 20% off of all of our events, and we are going to have some events where we're hoping to have an event out at Riders Field with the Frisco homestand. They have a lazy river out there, so maybe we can get John in a Speedo and out there in the lazy river. It's a possibility. But anyway, you'll never know if you don't become a diehard. So become a diehard at alldlls.com/join. Only $79.99, and don't be surprised if there's another spring training special that comes down the pike here before the season
Oh,
starts.
that was a tease. All right, so very good. We're having so much fun, the time's flying by. So I'm going to get through this, because I like these rankings so much. MLB comes out with what they call their power rankings, and they rank the team 1 through 30. All the teams in baseball, they rank them 1 through 30. And this is actually, this one's not their power ranking. This is called Drafting the World Series Favorites. And so we won't go 30. We won't even go, all right, 10 was the Cubs, right? I want to go in reverse order. 10 was the Cubs. They're iffy about that pick, these MLB writers who did this. Number 9, the New York Yankees. And these writers believe the Yankees will not make the World Series. One of them says they don't think the Yankees will make the playoffs this year. So that would be an interesting development. Number 8, a familiar foe to the Rangers the last time they were in the World Series. 8 on the list, Jeff, the Arizona Diamondbacks, who, of course, have a great rotation, but might not be as deep in lineup-wise as some of these teams that are above them, which, as you've already guessed, I'm sure, includes the Texas Rangers, who are above the Yankees, and another American League team there above, the Boston Red Sox, who greatly added to their team this past offseason, I should say, with Alex Bregman and Garrett Crochet, two really, really good additions to that team. So they rank number 7, 6 on the list. Another American League East team, Jeff, the Baltimore Orioles.
Of course, yeah.
And then we get to number 5. The 5th-ranked team, or the team that is the favorite to win the World Series in all of the American League, your Texas Rangers, because the four teams above them are the Mets, the Phillies, the Braves, and of course the Dodgers.
Wow!
So MLB basically has the Rangers winning the American League, Jeff.
Yeah, that's interesting. The NLE sounds like it'll be a buzzsaw, a grinder. The NL East, the NL West, because I think the Padres are still going to be a good team. That's today's Rangers spring foe. Wow, that's pretty interesting. That would indicate that they don't care much for either Central Division.
No.
And with the Cubs being the only Central team on that list, I think, from if I'm not mistaken, and then the Mariners and the Astros on the outside looking in there. And you can punch holes into every one of those teams probably, except for the Dodgers, I would think. But that's interesting. And again,
in fairness, they do these the computer-generated play every game throughout the season, and they do it with a bunch of different models. And they did 4 different models, and even the Dodgers only came up with a 23% chance of winning it, right? So that means 3 out of 4 had somebody else, not necessarily the Dodgers winning the World Series. So as good as that team we think is going to be, all the computer models say, yeah, they're good. They got a 25, a little less than a 25% chance of winning the thing.
Well, and you can't forecast injuries. um, which is a big one. Guys who regress significantly, which the Rangers experienced last year. So, you can. These are just more fun things to talk about. But
Yep.
the
Yep. That's all
takeaway
it
through it
is.
all the takeaway through it all is the Rangers are going to be good. You should be optimistic if you're a Rangers fan.
Yes.
You're starting to hear it more and more from observers of the club, people in the media here. Matt Hicks was just talking to the Padres writers, and I overheard him say, "We think we're going to be pretty good." So, yeah, I agree with that, and it all has to be played out. A lot of things have to go right, but that's for every contender. Every contender has to have breaks along the way, and the Rangers will need some themselves. The Dodgers will need some breaks. Let's be honest. They need Shohei Ohtani to be a good pitcher. He's part of their rotation. They need these guys to not get hurt who've been getting hurt in the past. So yeah, every team is walking a tightrope the whole season on the injury front.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it is like you say, it's fun. And I was going down the list and I'm like, dang, because it started at the top, and I'm like, dang, they like nobody in the American League. And I figured the Yankees, because of the East Coast bias, that most of these guys would be number one on their list. But no, it's your Texas Rangers, and I do believe. That shows two things. One, those guys have been doing their homework. Not that I necessarily think the Rangers are automatically better than every one of those other teams, but we know they'll be good. And if you don't do your
Yeah,
homework, you just look at 78 wins last year and you go, well, the Rangers aren't going to be any good. They won 78 games, for God's sake. But you have to look at what they did. You have to look at who they're getting back and end up with the team that right now is fifth on that list of favorites to win the World Series. All right, so if you're a Rangers fan, you have lots of reason to be excited. If you're a Tigers fan, as I am, as well as a Rangers fan, you had lots of reasons to be excited yesterday. Now, this is a nightmare for Rob Thompson, the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. It was the Phillies against the Tigers yesterday. It's a scoreless game. Rob Thompson has agreed on an ESPN broadcast to be a part of be mic'd up and talk to
yeah,
the announcers during the game, right? Something that even happens now during regular season games. It happens during playoff games. As a guy who was formerly a part of the world that encouraged that, I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about it.
okay.
I'd like not to have the announcer, but then again, when you get that great bit for TV, you love it. So anyway, it's dicey. A lot of times the manager just does it because that's what you have to do, and you don't get much from him. And anyway, Rob Thompson is mic'd up with a headset on in the dugout. No score in the game, but the bases are loaded, and God, things just went crazy for lefty Jesus Lazardo. Take a look. All right. There's the pitch, and Thompson's talking. And look at him. He's looking. He's like, oh, man. Oh, geez almighty. Jamani Jones just hit that a long way. It's a grand slam. That is a grand
Okay.
slam home run. So it went from nothing to nothing to 4-0 right there. So, and they're talking to Thompson a little bit there, and he doesn't have much to say, but he did talk about the pitch that Lazardo threw and that sort of thing. And so now it's 4-0, and they show a couple of replays, and Jones, man, he just turned on that ball. And Lazardo's on a minor league, contract, if you will, with an invite to Major League camp, but they like him as a lefty specialist. But anyway, so there's that. And now here comes your next batter. Oh, my, first pitch, and it is gone. So that's back-to-back pitches, back-to-back home run. Now Thompson ain't saying a damn word. He's like, are you kidding me? And about now, the announcers on ESPN, bless them, are saying, oh, God, Thompson, Tomper, I think they said, whatever they used as his nickname. They said, thanks for doing this. I mean, I know this is not easy to see. I mean, this has got to be really hard. But anyway, Andy Ibanez hit that one. But now we wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, we were going to ask you, and then they go into whatever question it was that they were going to ask him. And Thompson gets about 2 words out of his mouth, and the next batter comes up. It's Gleyber Torres. and boom, third pitch in a row, third home run in a row, basically all to the same spot. And Thompson's just like, if I was him, Jeff, at that point, I'd take the damn headset off and I throw it on the ground. I know it's a spring training game, but you might have to go out to the mound and cut Jesus Lazardo right now.
Lazardo, he's been a hell of a pitcher at times.
Yeah.
They got him from the Marlins, and he can dominate. I remember the first time I saw him pitch, he was with the A's still, and this is, I don't know, maybe right out of the pandemic, maybe right before. He's been around for a while, actually. He dominated the Rangers. He struck out 12 in 5 innings. It was ridiculous. He was so good, and so he's got talent. I think the Rangers would be interested in having Jesus Lazardo on their team. Maybe not after that.
Yeah.
But I hope that Thompson has a sense of humor, had some fun with it afterward. And I hope the ESPN guys went down afterwards and were talking to him. We're like, geez, we're so sorry. But what a spot.
Yeah, and that is a nightmare for the obviously for the manager, but it is for the announcers too. You realize, oh my gosh, this poor guy. He wants no part of commenting on each and every one of those balls that we say. The hitter always says, well, you got to hit their mistakes. Man, did they ever? They hit the mistakes that Jesus Lazardo was making there. So anyway, that was just one of those things you don't see in baseball very often. You might see back-to-back-to-back home runs, but not on back-to-back-to-back pitches. 3 pitches, Jeff, 3 home runs.
Yeah, that's I don't know if I'm sure I've seen back-to-back-to-back at some point. You see back-to-back, a handful of times a season, maybe a team does it 5 to 10 times. So you see it, but 3 in a row is a rarity, and I can't. I'm guessing I have seen it, but I couldn't tell you when.
Yeah, I can't remember seeing it myself either, but I'm sure I have, but I know I've never seen it on back-to-back-to-back pitches. And I don't know if they wrote whether or not it's ever happened on back-to-back-to-back pitches, but they've been playing baseball an awfully long time, so it probably has. Another note we wanted to get to in our cleanup segment, he mentioned this when he was on the show with us on Monday, but today we wish happy birthday, Jeff, to happy 70th birthday to Chuck Morgan.
Yeah, good dude. We knew that before he came on our show. Been in this game a long time. Such an interesting career that we really didn't get into, going back to his DJ days and all the buddies he made in country music, guys who I listen to now. I just really enjoy talking to him about it. And next time he's on, we definitely have to talk to him about that. But happy birthday to him. And then I believe I saw on the Twitter, John, that today, 189 years ago, was the Battle of the Alamo.
Oh, wow.
So all of us, all of you guys and Texas history buffs and John Wayne movie buffs and Davy Crockett fans, wasn't a great day that day for those fellas, but it turned out pretty good here about a month or so later.
Yeah, all's well that ends well, as they say. Spring training not on the verge of ending quite yet, but I guess are we past the halfway point, or we're right at it anyway? 3 weeks.
Yeah,
it's hard to keep track. 3 weeks.
You lose track.
Yeah, 3 weeks. It's from opening day, so that's really cool. That's really exciting. Jeff, we appreciate your insights and your thoughts and your work out there in Arizona, as always. We'll do this again tomorrow at noon, and it'll be the last day for this trip for Jeff from Arizona. But that's tomorrow. That's noon. That's here on the DLLS Rangers Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.